The shadows lengthened, not just with the setting sun over the sprawling cityscape, but with the encroaching darkness of an unseen threat. Deep within the clandestine corridors of intelligence, the Mossad operated, a silent guardian against the myriad dangers that perpetually simmered beneath the veneer of global stability. Their operations were rarely acknowledged, their victories often unknown, yet their impact resonated through the annals of geopolitical history, shaping outcomes that few outside their ranks would ever comprehend. This particular mission, however, promised to be different. Its implications were vast, touching every major power, weaving a complex web of potential chaos that demanded immediate and decisive intervention. At the heart of this brewing storm was a figure known only as the Architect. Not merely a terrorist mastermind or a rogue operative, the Architect was a phantom, a whisper in the dark, orchestrating destabilization with chilling precision. His network was rumored to stretch across continents, his influence seeping into the highest echelons of power, poised to ignite a conflict that could engulf the world. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture, a high-value operative, brilliant and utterly ruthless, whose continued existence threatened to unravel the delicate tapestry of international relations. Disabling him was paramount, but locating him proved to be an almost insurmountable obstacle. Every lead evaporated. Every informant disappeared, leaving behind only echoes of his malevolent presence. To confront such a formidable adversary, the Mossad assembled an elite team, a confluence of diverse specialists, each a master of their craft. There was Anya, the cybernetics prodigy whose fingers danced across keyboards, decrypting the seemingly indecipherable. Beside her stood Ben, the logistics expert, capable of moving mountains or vanishing entire convoys with equal ease. Then there was Lena, the psychological profiler, whose insights into the human mind were as sharp as any blade. But at the helm of this extraordinary group was Elias. His gaze, often distant, held the weight of past failures, a silent testament to missions that had gone awry under his command. Yet, it was this very burden that fueled his relentless drive, a burning desire to atone, to ensure no such catastrophe befell his team again. Duty was not just a word to Elias, it was a consuming fire. The Architect's ruthlessness materialized in brutal acts of terror, each calculated to sow discord and fear. A diplomatic convoy ambushed in broad daylight. A critical data center wiped clean of information, all bearing the subtle, chilling signature of the Architect's reach. He seemed omnipresent, his shadow cast over every significant global event. Just as despair began to settle, a critical piece of intelligence emerged from the digital ether, a fragmented data packet intercepted from a dark web forum. It was a digital breadcrumb, hinting at a vulnerability, a fleeting opportunity within the Architect's meticulously constructed fortress of anonymity. The team converged in a secure subterranean bunker, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and impending doom. Holographic projections flickered across the table, displaying the sparse, tantalizing clues. Elias outlined the initial strategy, his voice calm, but his eyes betraying the immense risks involved. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal, requiring flawless execution and an impossible degree of luck. Just as a fragile consensus began to form, a jarring red alert flashed across Anya's screen, her face drained of color. "Ben," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's been compromised." His last known location. It's a black site. A cold dread seeped into the room. Ben, their logistical linchpin, was gone. The mission, barely conceived, was already teetering on the brink. The unseen threat had struck its first blow, and the team found themselves staring into the abyss, their very foundation shaken before the true fight had even begun. The revelation of Ben's compromise ripped through the team like a sudden, brutal gust of wind. The secure bunker, moments before humming with focused tension, now felt suffocatingly silent, punctuated only by the frantic tapping of Anya's keyboard as she desperately tried to re-establish contact. Elias watched her, his jaw tight, the familiar bitter taste of failure rising in his throat. Ben, always meticulous, always prepared, was now a ghost in the system, a critical piece of the intricate puzzle violently removed. The implications were catastrophic. Not only had they lost a vital asset, but the breach indicated a level of penetration they hadn't anticipated. Whispers of doubt began to circulate among the Mossad's upper echelons. The mission, already deemed high risk, now appeared fundamentally flawed. Calls for its immediate termination grew louder, threatening to unravel weeks of painstaking preparation. Elias found himself in a constant battle, advocating for continuation, arguing that retreat would only embolden the architect. He felt the weight of every lost agent, every failed operation, pressing down on him, a chorus of spectral voices questioning his judgment. His dedication was unwavering, yet the echoes of a past mission, a hostage rescue gone horribly wrong years ago, continued to haunt his waking thoughts and invade his restless sleep. He had made a call then, a split-second decision based on incomplete intel, and it had cost lives. The faces of those fallen agents often blurred with Ben's now, a constant reminder of the razor's edge he walked. As the team grappled with their internal turmoil, Lena's analysis of the architect's network revealed a terrifying truth. It was far more extensive, more deeply embedded than their initial assessments had suggested. His influence stretched across continents, manipulating markets, destabilizing governments, and orchestrating terror with chilling precision. The digital breadcrumb they had found now seemed less like a vulnerability and more like a deliberate distraction in a vast, impenetrable web. It was during this period of despair that a young, unassuming junior analyst named Maya, known more for her quiet diligence than her bold ideas, tentatively presented an alternative. Her voice, usually soft, gained a surprising clarity as she laid out her theory. Instead of brute force or technological superiority, she proposed a strategy rooted in human psychology, an exploitation of the architect's own meticulously crafted persona. Her approach was unconventional, almost absurd in its simplicity, suggesting they turn his greatest strength, his perceived invincibility, into his ultimate weakness. Initial reactions from the seasoned agents ranged from polite skepticism to outright derision. Elias, however, saw a flickering ember of possibility in Maya's presentation. It was a gamble, a wildly unpredictable element, but their current path was leading them to a dead end. The plan involved subtle manipulation, planting seeds of doubt and paranoia within the architect's inner circle, using his own psychological profile against him. It was a long shot, reliant on predicting human behavior under extreme pressure, a delicate dance on the precipice of chaos. With renewed, albeit cautious resolve, the team began intensive training. They drilled endlessly, honing their skills in psychological warfare, mastering the art of deception, and practicing the intricate choreography of Maya's audacious plan. During one such late-night session, while reviewing encrypted communications, Anya stumbled upon something disturbing. A series of anomalous data packets, seemingly innocuous, had been routed through an internal Mossad server, implying unauthorized access. It was too subtle to be an external hack. The data pointed to a mole, a serpent coiled within their own ranks, feeding information to the enemy. The implications were staggering. Trust, already fragile after Ben's apparent betrayal, now shattered completely. The mission, once threatened by an external force, now faced an insidious enemy from within, adding an agonizing layer of danger to an already impossible task. The team, now a fractured entity bound by a common, perilous goal, deployed under a cloak of extreme secrecy, melting into the dense urban sprawl of a city known for its labyrinthine alleys and shadowed dealings. Each agent moved with a calculated grace, their training manifesting in every subtle glance and measured step. Anya, with her unparalleled technical prowess, established a secure communication network from a nondescript apartment, her fingers dancing across keyboards, a silent orchestra of data. David, the master of disguise, blended seamlessly into the local populace, his eyes constantly scanning, a human sensor array detecting the slightest anomaly. Elias, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders, orchestrated their movements, a chess master guiding his pieces across a dangerous board. The chilling revelation of a mole within their own ranks had cast a long shadow over their already precarious mission. Elias, driven by an instinct honed by years of combat and espionage, confronted the suspected operative, a quiet logistics specialist named Cale, in a deserted safe house. The air crackled with unspoken accusations, the silence punctuated only by the distant hum of city life. Cale's eyes, usually placid, held a flicker of fear and desperation. The interrogation was not one of brute force, but of psychological warfare, a delicate probing of Cale's fractured loyalties. The truth, when it finally emerged, was not a tale of malice or ideological betrayal, but of desperate coercion. Cale's family, living in a vulnerable region, had been subtly threatened, their safety contingent on his quiet cooperation. The architect, it seemed, had an uncanny ability to identify and exploit every weakness, every vulnerability. Elias found himself facing a profound moral dilemma. Expose Cale, and not only would his family be in immediate danger, but the team would lose a valuable asset whose compromised position could, ironically, be weaponized. Or, could Cale become an unwitting double agent, feeding carefully curated information back to the architect, turning the tables on their unseen enemy? Elias chose the latter, a calculated risk that gnawed at his conscience but offered a glimmer of strategic advantage. As they pressed deeper into the operation, the architect's security measures proved to be even more impenetrable than anticipated. Layers of digital encryption, biometric scanners, and a network of human surveillance created an almost impermeable fortress around his operations. Their initial attempts at infiltration were met with dead ends, phantom leads, and an unnerving sense that their every move was being anticipated. The team then executed a complex, multi-pronged infiltration designed to probe the outer layers of the architect's network. David, disguised as a foreign diplomat, managed to gain temporary access to a secure building, his mission to plant a subtle listening device. Anya, simultaneously, launched a sophisticated cyber attack, a digital smokescreen to divert attention. Elias provided overwatch, his heart pounding in his chest as he monitored their progress. A close call nearly exposed their entire operation. A routine security sweep unexpectedly detected David's device, triggering an immediate lockdown. David, thinking on his feet, created a diversion, feigning a medical emergency that drew attention away just long enough for Anya to remotely disable the alarm and allow him to escape. The adrenaline coursed through their veins, leaving them shaken but intact. The emotional toll of these constant near misses was becoming evident. Sleep deprivation, constant stress, and the gnawing fear of exposure etched lines of exhaustion onto their faces. Just as they were preparing for the final phase of the infiltration, a critical piece of equipment malfunctioned. The specialized decryption device, vital for accessing the architect's core servers, flickered and died. Panic threatened to overwhelm them. Without it, their entire plan would crumble. The mission's success now hinged on improvisation, a desperate gamble in the face of insurmountable odds. The team, reeling from the sudden malfunction, knew they had precious little time to recover. Elias, his mind racing, quickly assessed their limited resources. The specialized decryption device was irreplaceable in the field, its components too intricate for on-the-spot repair. He made a difficult decision, one that went against every protocol and risked his decorated career. He ordered Anya to retask a civilian satellite, one not under Mossad's direct control, to process the encrypted data. This audacious move bypassed official channels entirely, a gamble that could expose their entire operation to international scrutiny if discovered, but it was their only viable path forward. The mission, he reasoned, transcended individual careers. While Anya worked feverishly on the satellite redirect, Elias shifted his focus to the architect's pattern of behavior, meticulously analyzing every intercepted communication, every known movement, every subtle nuance. He sought not just data but understanding, a psychological profile that could reveal a chink in the seemingly impenetrable armor. It was during this painstaking review that a small, almost insignificant detail surfaced. A series of recurring, highly encrypted communications with a single, private email address, distinct from the architect's usual operational contacts. Further investigation revealed this address belonged to an individual named Lena Petrova, a brilliant but reclusive bioengineer, seemingly unconnected to any illicit activities. Lena, it turned out, was the architect's estranged daughter. Her connection was the hidden vulnerability, a chasm in his meticulously constructed facade of control. The team realized with a jolt that Lena, unknowingly entangled in her father's web, could be their only way in. The ethical considerations were immediate and intense. Using an innocent civilian, especially a family member, for espionage was a morally fraught decision, one that weighed heavily on Elias. Yet, the stakes were too high to dismiss any avenue. Lena's backstory was one of quiet brilliance and profound personal tragedy. Her mother, the architect's first wife, had died under mysterious circumstances years ago, a loss that had driven a wedge between father and daughter. Lena had dedicated her life to medical research, seeking cures for rare genetic diseases, a stark contrast to her father's destructive path. She lived a solitary existence, her days consumed by her work, her nights haunted by the past. The team felt a surge of empathy for her, even as they considered the difficult path they might force her down. She was a victim, just like so many others, but one with an unforeseen connection to their target. Elias began a covert approach to Lena, a delicate dance of calculated encounters designed to appear accidental. He frequented the small, independent coffee shop she visited daily, striking up innocuous conversations about books and science. He observed her, noting her quiet intelligence, her deep-seated sadness, and her unwavering dedication to her work. He understood that any overt move would shatter her trust and jeopardize everything. He needed to build a rapport, a foundation of perceived safety, before he could reveal the terrifying truth. As Elias cautiously laid the groundwork, the architect's surveillance intensified, a palpable shift in the digital air. Their operational security, already stretched thin, felt the increased pressure. Elias noticed subtle changes in Lena's routine, an almost imperceptible increase in her vigilance, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. It seemed the architect, despite his estrangement, still kept tabs on his daughter, and his instincts, honed by years of illicit operations, were stirring. The pressure mounted, not just on Elias, but unknowingly on Lena as well. Her decision, Elias knew, would determine not only the fate of their mission, but also the course of her own life, irrevocably altering her quiet world. The revelation of her father's true nature, delivered with Elias's quiet conviction and undeniable proof, shattered Lena's meticulously constructed world. The man she had always known as distant, unfeeling, but ultimately dedicated to his work, was a monster. The images Elias showed her, the accounts of the victims, resonated with a pain she had long suppressed. The unspoken truth surrounding her mother's death, now making terrifying sense. Driven by a newfound searing anger and a profound sense of injustice, Lena, her voice barely a whisper, agreed to cooperate. The weight of her decision was immense, a crushing burden that promised to reshape every aspect of her existence, yet a flicker of resolve shone in her eyes. The Mossad team, working in the shadows of a safe house, immediately began her training. It was a crash course in clandestine communication, observation techniques, and the art of controlled deception. Lena, with her sharp intellect and photographic memory, proved to be an astonishingly quick study. She learned to identify dead drops, recognize surveillance patterns, and encode messages within seemingly innocuous conversations. The team marveled at her transformation, the quiet bioengineer shedding her shell to reveal an unexpected resilience. As Lena delved deeper into her father's world, the true extent of his inner circle began to unfurl before the Mossad's eyes. It was a vast, intricate web of power brokers, corrupt officials, and shadowy operatives, each with their own motives and allegiances. They were the architects of the architect's global network, facilitating his schemes with chilling efficiency. Among them, a name surfaced repeatedly: Viktor Volkov, a seemingly loyal lieutenant who managed the architect's financial dealings. Yet, there were subtle inconsistencies in intelligence reports, whispers of dissent, hints of a betrayal brewing within the very heart of the organization. Elias tasked Lena with subtly probing this potential fracture. Lena, now equipped with Elias's guidance and the team's technological support, began her dangerous dance. She reinstated sporadic contact with her father, ostensibly seeking to mend their fractured relationship. During these carefully orchestrated encounters, she subtly deployed her newly acquired skills. She left small, almost invisible data packets, activated discrete recording devices, and observed every detail, every nuance of her father's interactions with his subordinates. Her brilliance truly shone when she successfully gained access to a secure server, siphoning off critical financial ledgers and communication logs that illuminated the full scope of the architect's operations. There were moments, however, when the sheer terror of her situation threatened to overwhelm her. The fear of exposure, of her father's swift and brutal retaliation, gnawed at her. She would call Elias, her voice trembling, describing the suffocating tension, the feeling of being constantly watched. During one such call, she confessed her deepest fear, that she was merely a pawn, sacrificing herself for a cause that might ultimately fail. Elias, sensing her breaking point, offered not false platitudes but a quiet, unwavering reassurance. He spoke of the lives they were protecting, of the justice she was helping to achieve, slowly rebuilding her fragile resolve. Their bond, forged in the crucible of danger, deepened into a profound, if unspoken, trust. With Lena's invaluable intelligence, the Mossad team meticulously compiled the new data. The fragments began to coalesce into a coherent picture, revealing the precise mechanisms of the architect's operations, his key vulnerabilities, and crucially, a window of opportunity for a decisive strike. They began formulating the final phase of their plan, a high-stakes operation designed to dismantle his network from within. However, as they honed their strategy, an unexpected complication arose. A rival intelligence agency, seemingly working on a parallel investigation, began making moves that threatened to expose Lena and compromise the entire operation. Their actions, though independent, created a ripple effect, drawing unwanted attention to the architect's activities and, by extension, to Lena's covert presence. The Mossad's window of opportunity, painstakingly created, was rapidly closing, threatened by both the architect's tightening grip and the blundering interference of an unwitting third party. The situation had become volatile, a dangerous confluence of forces converging on a single, unsuspecting target. The stage was set for an unpredictable, potentially catastrophic confrontation. The Mossad team, acutely aware of the rapidly shrinking window, prepared for the final, most dangerous phase of the operation. The war room buzzed with a controlled intensity, a stark contrast to the quiet desperation that had often permeated their earlier meetings. Every detail, from the satellite surveillance blind spots to the precise timing of their ground insertions, was meticulously reviewed, dissected, and reevaluated. Maps, digital schematics, and live feeds projected onto the screens created a dizzying tableau of their target's fortified compound. Elias moved among his specialists, his gaze sharp, his questions incisive, pushing them to identify any potential flaw, any unforeseen contingency. There was no room for error now. The stakes were too high. Before deployment, a somber quiet settled over the team. Elias, standing before them, offered no rousing speech, only a direct acknowledgement of the peril that lay ahead. He looked into each individual's eyes, a silent communication passing between them, a shared understanding of the potential sacrifices. His gaze lingered for a moment on Lena's contact, the young analyst whose unconventional thinking had opened this path. There were no emotional goodbyes, just a quiet fortitude, a steely resolve etched on every face. Each agent knew the risks intimately, the possibility that this might be their last mission. Suddenly, an urgent report shattered the fragile calm. The architect had initiated a move that significantly accelerated his destructive plan. A series of encrypted communications, intercepted by Lena's planted devices, revealed a critical shift in his timeline. He was moving up the delivery of his catastrophic payload by 48 hours. The news hit them like a physical blow. Their meticulously crafted strategy, designed for precision and minimal exposure, was now obsolete. They were forced to act sooner than anticipated, with less preparation, their window of opportunity now a mere sliver. Panic threatened to ripple through the ranks, but Elias, His face grim, quickly reasserted control. For Elias, this sudden acceleration brought with it a renewed confrontation with his personal demons. The ghosts of his past failure, the faces of those he couldn't save, flickered at the edges of his vision. He knew this mission demanded everything, potentially even his life. He made peace with those potential sacrifices, not with resignation, but with a quiet, fierce determination. This time, he would not fail. This time, every life he could protect would be protected, even if it cost him his own. Amidst the frantic recalculations and revised deployment plans, Lena delivered the final, crucial piece of information. Through a daring last-minute maneuver, she had accessed the architect's private server, discovering the exact coordinates of the payload's final destination and the activation codes. Her voice, though strained from exhaustion and fear, carried the weight of their imminent success or failure. This was the key, the ultimate leverage. A heated exchange erupted between Elias and his superiors. The altered timeline meant abandoning several layers of their original plan, risking a direct, frontal assault that was far more dangerous. His superiors, cautious and bound by protocol, argued for a delay, for more reconnaissance. But Elias, armed with Lena's intelligence and an unwavering conviction, stood firm. "We go now," he declared, his voice cutting through the dissent, "or we lose everything." His authority, forged in countless battles, prevailed. The team deployed. Under the cloak of a moonless night, their vehicles moved like shadows towards the architect's fortified location, a sprawling complex nestled deep within a desolate industrial zone. The air inside the transport was thick with anticipation, the metallic scent of weaponry mingling with the faint tang of adrenaline. Each agent checked their gear one last time, their movements practiced and precise. Just as they approached the perimeter, a final, unexpected twist materialized. A frantic, coded message from a deep-cover asset embedded within the architect's organization indicated a double cross. Viktor Volkov, the seemingly loyal Lieutenant Elias had tasked Lena to investigate, had made his move. He had seized control of a critical section of the architect's security network, not to aid the Mossad, but to orchestrate his own takeover, leaving a gaping, albeit temporary, vulnerability. The mission's carefully constructed plan was thrown into chaos just as they closed in, the labyrinthine layers of betrayal and ambition now intertwining, creating a volatile and unpredictable battlefield. The chaos that erupted with Volkov's double-cross was immediate and devastating, yet it also carved unexpected pathways through the architect's seemingly impenetrable defenses. Elias, his mind a whirlwind of tactical adjustments, saw the momentary split in allegiance not as a complete disaster, but as a fleeting, perilous opportunity. The team, now under intense fire from both the architect's loyalists and Volkov's rogue faction, navigated a labyrinth of steel and concrete, each corridor a potential death trap. Lasers crisscrossed the dim spaces, punctuated by the staccato bursts of gunfire and the screams of men. Elias moved with a brutal efficiency, his training taking over, his eyes scanning for weaknesses, for openings. He found himself facing the architect directly in a vast, echoing control room, the air thick with the smell of ozone and spent ammunition. The architect, a figure of chilling calm amidst the storm, merely smiled, a predatory glint in his eyes. He activated a series of countermeasures, a desperate final act to seal his fate and theirs. Walls shifted, floors became electrified, and automated turrets whirred to life, targeting Elias with lethal precision. It was a battle of wits and raw physical prowess, Elias dodging, weaving, firing with deadly accuracy, while the architect behind a reinforced glass panel manipulated his digital fortress. Meanwhile, Volkov's betrayal played out across the complex, his men clashing violently with the architect's remaining guards. This internal war, while distracting, also threatened to collapse the entire structure, jeopardizing the mission's primary objective, the neutralization of the catastrophic payload. Sacrifices were made in those frantic moments, brave agents falling, their lives extinguished in the brutal reality of their mission. Their commitment, their unwavering loyalty, underscored the profound cost of their endeavors. It was Lena, her heart pounding against her ribs, who averted a major catastrophe. As the control room's critical systems began to overload, triggered by the architect's final desperate command, she spotted a small, overlooked maintenance panel. Her fingers flew across the unfamiliar interface, recalling her intensive training, her quick thinking a beacon in the encroaching darkness. She bypassed the system's failsafe, rerouting the power surge just seconds before it could detonate a localized power core, preventing a chain reaction that would have leveled the entire facility and everything within it. A desperate race against time ensued to neutralize the architect's final contingency, a hidden trigger that would remotely activate the payload, even if he were captured or killed. Elias, wounded but relentless, saw the arrogance in the architect's eyes, the unwavering belief in his own genius. He leveraged it. Instead of attempting a direct assault on the trigger mechanism, which was undoubtedly booby-trapped, Elias engaged the architect in a psychological duel, exploiting his profound need for control and recognition. He taunted him, questioned his methods, his legacy, knowing the architect would rather personally witness his creation's destruction than allow it to be defiled or stopped by an inferior mind. The architect, his face contorted in a sneer of contempt, fell for the bait. He disabled the remote trigger, intending to activate it manually and savor the moment of ultimate power. This brief, fatal lapse in judgment was all Elias needed. With a sudden, swift movement, Elias disarmed him, severing the connection between the architect and his catastrophic creation. The architect's ultimate demise was not through simple violence, but through his own hubris, his overconfidence becoming his undoing. As the last of the architect's loyalists fell and Volkov's men were subdued by the Mossad's overwhelming force, an eerie silence descended upon the complex, broken only by the crackle of distant fires and the heavy breathing of the surviving agents. The mission was accomplished. The target was neutralized, the payload secured, but the immediate aftermath was chaos, uncertainty, and a profound question hanging heavy in the air. At what cost? The extraction was a grim ballet of efficiency and exhaustion. Each step away from the ravaged complex was a step deeper into the quiet aftermath, where the true weight of their actions began to settle. Agents, some limping, others cradling wounds, moved with practiced precision, their faces etched with the recent horror. The emotional toll was palpable, a silent current running beneath the surface of their professional demeanor. Elias, his arm bandaged tightly, felt the thrum of adrenaline slowly recede, replaced by a profound weariness that seeped into his bones. He had faced his demons, not just the architect, but the ghosts of his past failures, and had emerged, if not unscathed, then certainly whole. His personal journey for redemption, begun in the shadows of regret, now felt complete, a heavy burden finally lifted. Lena, her face smudged with grime but her eyes clear and resolute, stood by a comms array, relaying coordinates. Her quick thinking had saved them all, a testament to her quiet strength. She deserved a different life, Elias mused, far from the brutal calculus of espionage. He knew she would find it. The civilian, whose real name was now a closely guarded secret, was whisked away to a secure location, offered a new identity and a chance at a life free from the target's shadow. For them, it was a choice between finding a new purpose, perhaps working quietly against the very forces they had just helped dismantle, or simply moving on, attempting to erase the searing memories of their entanglement. The latter seemed a more likely path, a quiet retreat from the global stage they had unwillingly stepped upon. The geopolitical landscape, for a fleeting moment, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The architect's network, crippled by the Mossad's decisive action, crumbled, its tendrils retracting from the global arteries it had sought to choke. Nations that had braced for impact now exhaled. The silent confirmation of the mission's impact reverberating through intelligence communities worldwide. Back at headquarters, the debriefing was a meticulous dissection of triumph and tragedy. The success was undeniable, a testament to courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Yet the cost was etched into every report, every fallen name read aloud. A quiet moment of remembrance followed, a solemn acknowledgement of comrades who would not return, their sacrifices woven into the fabric of the agency's unwavering resolve. Elias, sitting across from Director Herzog, felt a sense of closure he hadn't known was possible. The director, his gaze unwavering, offered a rare, almost imperceptible nod of respect. Elias still carried the weight of his past, the indelible marks of a life lived in shadows. But now it was tempered with a renewed resolve, a purpose forged in the fires of redemption. He had stared into the abyss and pulled back, not just himself, but a piece of the world from its grasp. He understood that the fight was endless, a perpetual cycle of threats and countermeasures, but for now, there was peace. The long-term implications of the mission would unfold over years, reshaping alliances, altering strategies, and perhaps inspiring a new generation of covert operatives. The architect's defeat sent a clear message. No threat, however sophisticated, was beyond the reach of determined defense. Yet even as the world celebrated a quiet victory, Elias knew it was merely a pause. In the hushed halls of intelligence, whispers began to circulate, faint at first, then growing louder. A new threat, amorphous and cunning, was already beginning to coalesce in the digital shadows, a different kind of architect, perhaps, already laying the groundwork for the next global crisis. The endless cycle of espionage continued, a quiet, relentless dance between light and shadow, forever vigilant, forever necessary.